Hi, lovelies. I wanted to introduce this episode because it is a really special episode for me. Today, you get to hear from one of my closest friends, has known me since kindergarten, Kara, talking about her first year of entrepreneurship. And it is really special to me that that Kara was so vulnerable with us and shared a lot about what it felt like to make the transition from corporate to running her own business, but also this is one of these stories that is exactly why I love to do what I do and what I've built my 12-week program Marketing Mastery off of. So when we leave corporate, it always is going to feel really weird to start to be our own boss and try to decide what we want our life to look like. It takes a little bit of like ups and downs, which Kara wonderfully and vulnerably shares about on this episode. So for me, Marketing Mastery is about setting that foundation, knowing that when we create a strong business vision built with a strong structure in marketing, but also with who you want to be, you can actually create a wealthier life running your own business. So know that if any of this episode is something that you've been thinking about or in general would love to have for yourself, take a look at Marketing Mastery. DM me, check the show notes so you can join us for our next round. Being limitless is knowing your success and your growth are built on a radical belief in yourself. Limitless is honoring your purpose, your health, and impact above all else. Limitless is never playing small because the more alive you feel in your life, the more growth and success you attract. Hi, my name is Jamie Ratterman, and I am a holistic business coach, meaning I am just as invested in growing your health as I am in growing your wealth. With 11 plus years in brand and social media marketing, I help rebellious entrepreneurs master marketing, embody leadership, and say fuck it to the hustle. This show is here to encourage you to become more radically aware of your self-imposed limits, to break free of your shoulds, and to expand your brand into a movement led by you. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to another episode of the Limitless podcast. Today's guest, I'm going to have to say, is probably the most special guest I've had yet. We have a guest today who probably knows your host better than I know myself. Let's be clear. She is someone who has known me since I wore pigtails. Well, I should better reference that since I had permed bangs, since I was played with crayons. I also don't say that very well. Today we have my best friend, also SpongeBob enthusiast, also badass divorce coach, Kara Francis, on the podcast with us today. And she has been lovingly willing to share and let us celebrate with her first year of entrepreneurship. So one, you guys are going to hear probably more about me than you realize, but two, yes, this is one of the kind of conversations that you get a little piece into my life and some of the people who are the most important to me. So Kara, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I will, I'll try to resist the urge to do all of the SpongeBob references. It's going to be hard.
I feel like we're allowed to let it, we'll cut them out if there's too many. Like, well, I in general, seasons 1 through 3, I think we could probably work through pretty well. Before we dive in though, tell us a little bit about your story. What do you do and why did you choose entrepreneurship?
My story is still evolving for sure. And especially as I approach this 1-year mark, I feel like it's a reminder of how far I've come, but how far I still would like to go in life. As you did, Jamie, I grew up very small town, Ohio, 2 traffic lights. I think the running joke is more bars than stoplights. I think that's still the case.
5 bars now and 2 stoplights. If we have our priorities.
Priorities, right. Yeah. So, the small town environment, the pros and cons, very supportive, very safe, very loving community. On the flip side, everybody knows your business. It can be hard to break away from what everybody else is doing with their lives, and you feel that pressure, certainly. And I was no exception to that. I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to be involved in the divorce world in some way. That was in large part due to my oldest sister going through a divorce when I was around a teenager. And that was my first exposure to divorce. And so I got to see what it changed for her life and how it she just did a complete 180. And it was almost just like the real authentic her was there under the surface. And it was just really being trapped by this relationship that she was in at the time. And so I really saw firsthand the positive impact that it had on her life and also our relationship with each other. And so I was thinking, I want to help other people do what she did with her life. I want to help people break through that and really be happy in life and not feel like they have to stay in a relationship just because it's what they've always known. And so I thought the best way to do that was to become a lawyer. I had that as my North Star really for years, all through high school, through college. That was
I remember when you made your
plan.
decision. I remember I was like, I think I'm going to be a journalist. And I'm like, but we'll figure it out. And you're like, I'm a lawyer. I'm always going to be a lawyer. I remember how like you were decisive on it when many of us were like, we just want to go to this college. Figure it out.
Yeah. And, I was at Ohio State. That's a huge party school, a huge athletics school. I'm in the library taking practice LSATs, just preparing.
Wait, the library, the bar, the library. Which one?
The actual library.
There's a running joke. I would go to Ohio State and visit her all the time, and I still find to this day, like I was robbed that my college, Ohio University, doesn't have a bar called the library. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why every single college should have a bar named the library? I digress. Either way, yes, the diligent student in the actual library. Alcohol was for later.
Exactly. Diligent is a very good way to describe me. I was very hyper-focused on what I wanted to do with my life, both personally and professionally. And where we grew up, James, it's very common for people to get married quite young, start a family quite young, settle down in the area, and that's where they live their lives. And that's perfectly acceptable and beautiful and amazing if it's for you. But I would say by college is when I started to feel that tension between what I observed growing up of what I should be doing with my life versus how I was actually feeling inside. And so I think another big thing that happened along the way was we were raised very Catholic, as you know. And as soon as I left high school, I did stop practicing that religion, and I don't regret that, but it did leave a spiritual void for me. And I think over time, because I felt like I couldn't really surrender anything up to some higher power and say those prayers and give things up sometimes, that really manifested in me being very controlled with my life because I felt like I had to make all of these good things happen for me. I couldn't rely on anybody else. And that really evolved into perfectionism, people pleasing, being the good girl, all of the things, as you well know, never really stepping a toe out of line, sticking to the plan, always sticking to the plan. And it really wasn't until I hit my 30s after I had achieved everything on that list. Check, check, check. And then I finally started to wake up and realize that even though I had achieved all of the goals I had set for myself between becoming a lawyer, getting my dream job at the firm I wanted, getting married, buying a house, I didn't feel anything. I felt very detached. I felt very, very disconnected from who I really was. And when COVID hit and everybody had to slow down and we didn't really have any other distractions other than Netflix, of course. I really couldn't run from it anymore.
Tiger King that was keeping us going. The Tiger King at the beginning of COVID. But yes,
Love Island.
Go ahead. I do it. But yes, the beginning of COVID. Go ahead. And that's a bad time to interrupt because this is a big part of your story.
That's okay. Yeah, I couldn't run from it anymore. And it was one of those situations where if the world is on fire and the world is really fucked up right now, and who knows what's going to happen to any of us, why am I living this life that doesn't make me feel happy and fulfilled and aligned with who I really am. Bearing in mind, I didn't really know who I really was. I just knew that what I was doing and how I was living my life wasn't it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I very slowly and deliberately started pulling apart my life piece by piece. And as you probably remember very well, when I called you that one day in March of 2020, that began with my marriage. And I knew that while I could be okay and I could be fine in that marriage, if I had to stay, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to access my true self if I maintained that relationship. And so, as difficult as it was, and as contrary to everything I'd ever learned was, I chose myself. And it was definitely a challenging process. However, I remember when I, opened the door to my new apartment, it was completely bare. I had boxes everywhere. It was a complete shit show. And instead of feeling anxious, I just breathed a sigh of relief. I could finally breathe because I knew that I had made a decision that was going to propel me forward on the right track. And you were really there for all of the ups and downs of that process. That was really when I first started appreciating the benefits of coaching. You weren't coaching me per se, right? You were being my friend, right? As you kind of shake your head like, yeah, sure.
I mean, there's a side of it as if I know I can help you, I'm not going to, like, literally, I've known you for so long, but by all means, yes, I would say though, and I just want to put this out there, you begrudgingly received help from me, like, because a lot of what Kara's sharing here is that, she's one of the most disciplined people I know in my life. Like you are, and that you also too, like, want to release some of that. You want to feel fluid and flexible and that type of thing. And there was moments where you were having a tough time, which we all would, especially during that time. And I'm like, you can call me more than once a month, like, and it got to a point where I was like, we're going to just put a call on the calendar. And then, like, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to need it. I'm like, you're right. You may not need it. And then it turned out there was, like, a few months where there was some harder moments. And then you're like, I'm so glad I have this. I'm so glad I have this feeling. And I think this is what's lovely about this conversation is that, me and Kara have always been friends. There's never been a time where we haven't been best friends, but there's been a very big shift in the way in which we connect with each other, especially since this has happened, for the fact that there's a lot more vulnerability. There's a lot more feeling of, like, what do we want in our lives? And it's not this, like, there's this, like, concept of just, like, we're not talking about what people are doing. We're talking about, like our feelings and our deeper needs and wants, and, like, how we're wanting to change the way we feel, like the way we see the world, different things like that. And that doesn't happen until you kind of break down some of the patterns and the bullshit that we've decided, well, this is supposed to be how life is. And so with Kara, like, expressing all this, guys, she moved out of a beautiful condo in the middle of COVID. And I want to be very clear, her ex-husband is a very, very nice guy. Like, it's just, it wasn't the right fit. It turned out not to be the right fit. So she did this. She, like, I remember you picking out your pink couch and going, like, and I was, like, thinking to myself, like, she went from, like, this, like, very, like, oh, what's acceptable, to, like, I'm going to have a pink couch. I'm going to get my own cat. I'm going to do this whole vibe. And I was like, I could just see the small and big decisions of, like, really owning, like, okay, I'm going to try things out until I figure out exactly what I want. I decide how my life looks like. And I think this is a big part of your story, which I love listening to.
Well, and I'm so grateful that you're a part of it, because truly, to your point, it was, and sometimes still is, difficult for me to receive help. I have always felt very self-sufficient. I've always felt like if I'm in control, I can do it better than anybody else. So I'm just going to stay on track and not reach out for help. And because of that, you miss out on a lot of the growth and the learning and the process by not receiving support and not opening up and being vulnerable. And that's what I was learning over time. Because
there's also a side of that too, there's the feeling, and this applies to what Kara's sharing, but also like business as a whole, is this feeling of like, you should know how to do this. It's in part, yes, it's very good to be self-motivated. Like, we're never going to discount that, but it's in part going like, you don't deserve to be held up. You don't deserve, like you have to work your tail off to prove something, or even to like, there's like in general, like the kind of guidance, love you want to give to others, we deserve it back. Like that, like this is what it is to be human. And there's that whole breaking down that wall, which again, like I've seen you more open, and like all of the things that have flourished within you had a lot to do with going like, wait, I don't have to figure this out by myself, or like, or even too, it's not my burden to figure this out, because, you know, trying to keep someone else happy, that's like, we're not supposed to keep others happy. We're supposed to keep ourselves happy, and overflow from there goes. That's how it works, which is hard for women to figure out. There's so many pieces of this, but in general, I think like, yes, it's always good to be self-motivating. It's always good to be able to handle that. But you have a universe, God-given, right, whatever you want to say, to feel the power of being human. And that means support, that means community, that means connection.
100%. 100%. And, you know, that's definitely something that I've dove into more and more over time, especially even after making the leap to entrepreneurship, realizing that I don't have to do it all. And I can actually be stronger and more aligned with myself if I do receive support and help from other people, whether it's emotionally or technologically or financially, what have you. And yeah, it's something that I've struggled with, but as time goes on, I'm learning to become more accepting of help from other people. So yeah, 2020 was a trip, to say the least.
A milestone for sure. So when did you decide to make the switch from divorce lawyer to divorce coach?
Yes. So speaking of trips, there was another trip, an actual trip, one of our girls' trips in fall of 2021. So almost a year after my divorce. And, you know, for most of 2021, for me, was just about getting back to quote normal, unquote, being able to move on with my life after a really difficult year and just kind of ease back into regular life. The problem was it didn't feel regular anymore. It felt really uncomfortable and really challenging, particularly in my job. I found myself, the irony, I guess I'll back up. The irony is that I was more invested in work and billing so many more hours at work as a divorce lawyer in the years leading up to my divorce. And I think that says a lot about, if you're unhappy in one area of your life, you're going to pour all of your energy into other areas of your life as a means to avoid it. And that's definitely what I was doing.
It's a great distraction. I mean, it's a great distraction.
100%, especially if you are a lawyer, because there's always work to be done. So when 2021 came around, I didn't have the energy or the stamina for being a lawyer anymore. I found myself
just clocking the hours lost a little bit of meaning, and
yes.
Within that, the ability to keep doing it just like wasn't there.
Yeah. And it was almost like, you know, I went through such an incredible, challenging, rewarding, all of the things journey in 2020 to then kind of come back down. It wasn't enough for me anymore. And I felt like I just went through something very difficult and learned a lot about myself and learned how powerful I really am as a person. And I feel like I'm not able to fully express that power or that authenticity in this job. It just did not feel aligned at all. As you know very well, I'm a very conflict avoidant person. And so the irony of me choosing to be a divorce lawyer.
Never.
And it's one of those things that for me, it took me until my 30s to really realize that about myself, because I was so focused on the plan. I wasn't focused on myself or how I felt. And over time, I just got more and more uncomfortable being a lawyer. And I started to get very angry and resentful anytime I had to do something. And I took a step back and I was just like, this is not how I should feel about what I'm doing every day of my life. And so fast forward to towards the end of 2021, you, me, and another one of our very close girlfriends were on a trip. And this was, I think, our first trip post-COVID, because we had to postpone.
Post-COVID.
Yeah. And so, we had a lot to catch up on, of course. And, you've got the, how's work? How's the job, etc. And I remember just not really having anything positive to say about my job. It was mostly complaining.
But even too, I feel like this is such maybe me doing this for 6 years now. I feel like this is, I know what's about to happen is that in general, I'm like, how's work? And again, doesn't mean it's for everybody in a corporate kind of position, but in general, the normal is like, putting in the hard work, and then let's be like, oh yeah. And then like for the people you're closer with, like, oh, you think you'll get a raise soon, or like what's going on there? And then the people are like, red tape, and there's this consistent thing. But even too, when someone's really like I really hate my boss or my manager, I really don't like I'm just like this is the normal conversation that goes on. So like just in general, I don't want it to sound like Kara was any different than most, but within that too is that the very first night we were doing our like long catch up. We were in Asheville. We had a little hot tub, even though Kara doesn't like hot tubs. Fun fact. But we were having the full breakdown of each other's lives, and our friend went first and was talking about hers, and then you came in and we were talking about being a lawyer and different things like that. So go ahead, I'll let you continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To your point, it could literally the normal grumblings, right? Insert corporate job here, those kind of grumblings. And so yes, our friend shared, I shared, and then you were sitting there with this little smile on your face.
It was mostly like you two had finished
grin.
You two were just venting and bitching, and then like I was just listening, the whole thing, and then all of a sudden you both just like looked at me, and I'm like, oh. So yeah, it was a chagrin, but go ahead.
Yes, almost accusingly, like, what, Jamie? You were like, I really love what I do, and
I mean, I had nothing to vent about.
Exactly. And, that's not to say that I'm sure you have difficult days too, but the overall consensus is that you love what you do. It makes you happy. It lights you up. And that was really the first time that I sat back and was like, why am I doing this job that doesn't make me smile the way that Jamie's smiling right now? And why am I going to continue down that path when I have no problem flipping my personal life completely upside down? So who's to say that I can't do that with my professional life as well? What's stopping me, essentially? And sure enough, by December, I reached back out to you.
2 or 3 months later, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Reached out to you and told you that 2022 was going to be the year when I took the leap. I wanted to be a divorce coach. And I hired you as my business coach, which was wild.
I want to make it completely clear the amount of giddiness that happened when she was like, I feel like I want to talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, let's have a friend call. And you're like, no, I want it to be kind of like a potential working together call. And like the amount of giddiness, I was like, wait, what? Amazing. Amazing. Because I think that I want to say, and I know for many people who listen to the podcast, you clearly know I'm pro entrepreneurship in a lot of ways, just because it's been such a deeper meaning for me. But I didn't know by saying I loved my job while these two were grumbling that she was going to come to me in a few months and say like, okay, let's put this stuff together. And that was a big deal. That was a big deal for the fact that when you did come to me and you told me that story, and it was. And I tell that story all the time now, even for the fact that like just sharing how you love something or being in your purpose or feeling that you are living a meaningful life, you do create a ripple effect directly and indirectly for the people around you. And that's going to stick with me for a very long time. Cause like, again, like there's something, at least for me, when it comes to friendships, I want my friends to make their choices. And I can see when other friends are miserable in their jobs, but at the end of the day, until you open the conversation about it, I'm not going to push it. Like, oh, there was no option within that. So whenever she was like, okay, it's here, it was like, finally, yes. Like, oh, yes. Yes. So yeah, we lovingly, we got to work together in the last few months of your being a lawyer, but also moving into becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And honestly, had I not gone through what I went through in 2020, I don't know that I would have been able to see that smile on your face and be receptive to even questioning what I was doing professionally, let alone completely changing it. And so I think that also just speaks to when you let your walls down and you go through hard shit and prove to yourself that even though it's hard, this is who I am, and I'm going towards that. I'm going down that path towards who I really am, and I can do this and I can get through it. It makes you feel invincible. Like I was like, I want to change all of the things. So yeah, I mean, it's no secret to you, Jamie, but obviously, we'll talk about entrepreneurship, but then I also decided to change completely where I live, and I'm in New York City now. So it's wild.
You're in my city too. My God, I can say that while Kara's been changing, I'm reaping all the benefits. I've got someone who's been close with me, moving closer to me. It's amazing. I mean, I think this is the domino effect, and for anyone who's listened to the people pleasing episodes, and even like anything when I'm talking about mindset or subconscious patterns, all of the things, is that once you start making a choice to break through a limit that's not serving you, like once you make it in a small way, the next decision that you want to make doesn't feel as big. And I think there's this feeling like, oh, it's going to be so hard because I got to keep changing the way I think. And it's like, no, there's like, once you create evidence that you can choose for yourself first, the next time in a different setting, in a bit in your business, and what food you want that night, and whatever, you're not gonna feel this like tension in your heart or in your stomach that you can't say what you want. And for this is exactly playing out, is that I guarantee I've probably said amongst Kara before that, yeah, I like my job. Yeah, I like my job. And it's just like she hadn't had the moment to like sit, like reflect and sit back on what she wanted when she was talking to someone. Even like me being a coach, I feel like I listened more than I ever did. I feel like in the past, I'd be like, what do I got to say next? What do I have to say next? And like being able to know that like the more we transition to these people that we always wanted to become, we're going to start seeing things around us that may have always been there, but now like we're actually like we're ready to receive them in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And I mean, you being a business coach is a perfect example of that. This is somebody who the universe has placed in my life as a friend for decades. But now when I'm ready to make a big step forward, I have that support ready to go, and I can just get started because you're here and you're meant to be in my life at that moment.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Well, cut to, so, we coached, like I said, we coached together for we did a 3-month package together when we were building her offers, building her business, like working through a lot of those things, but also a lot of it was how to leave this job of yours that had been so meaningful to you. So, you had a lot of colleagues that to this day hold you highest and different things like that. But like, what would you say, remembering leaving a law firm and deciding to go out on your own? Like what sticks out to you when you decided to make that big decision?
It was a mixed bag of excitement, nervousness, fear, happiness. I mean, it was all of the things. I went through a whirlwind of emotions. And I mean, I know, even during some of our calls together as my business coach during that time, some of them got quite emotional.
I love a good crying call. I feel like it's great. Like it's like a spa. Like people think it's crazy, but it's a spa day where we haven't let the emotions come out yet. Just a full on spa day. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I think what the most difficult aspects of it were is I hate disappointing people. So again, that people pleasing tendency, right? And I didn't want to disappoint people at the firm by telling them that I was leaving. And then the other thought was, it was almost this point of no return of, okay, this is really happening. This job at this firm is something that I had been working to get at for years. And to all of a sudden walk away from that was really scary because it was so much a part of my identity and what I had built my life around. And it really was a moment for me of having to trust myself and having to trust that everything was going to work out, which was difficult for me at the time because, again, I still really had that spiritual void that it was really difficult for me to release control over everything, to surrender and to trust that everything was going to work out the way it was supposed to work out. That was something that I did not do in my life up until that point. And so, that's why even as an entrepreneur now, spirituality is so important to me because I didn't have a choice at that point. I had to release the control because as an entrepreneur, you really can't, there's only so much you can control. And at the end of the day, you do have to trust that the universe is going to put you in front of people in places and in situations that are going to lead to building your business, learning and growing. And it's not something that you can manipulate. And so that part was very difficult for me. And this, even just late summer, early fall of 2022, I was a mess. And I won't go into all of the details. It was definitely a huge shift in my identity. And as someone,
you're going through one of the worst identity. I mean, again, yes. This isn't for every entrepreneur, but it's for many. And I want to this is a large part of why when people talk about personal growth and business growth, it's because of this, is that once you decide to go on your own or go after this thing that you love to do and make it into what builds wealth within your life, it's like, yes, on paper, it's like, yes, this is what I want. This is what this is common sense. Like we all want to live this way, but being the person that decides that they aren't going to get approval from other people, that they have to believe in themselves, that they're deciding this new version of themselves that they've always wanted, but have never actually activated or lived. All of these things are not easy. And especially for your subconscious, especially for your nervous system, who's been used to, okay, the only way that I know that this report is good or that I'm doing a good job of if this manager and this manager says yes, or if my mom approves of this, or if my sister says yes, or my best friend who's really judgmental gives me that yes, like then I know I'm good. To this going like, I don't give a crap about any of them. What do I want? And how do I own that? Like it's very difficult. It's so difficult. And the identity shift, you go through the muck. There's always a muck period. And I like to relate it to grief in a lot of ways. You're grieving your past self, who served you, who kept you safe. You were fine in that environment. There's nothing wrong overall with it, but you're grieving that person, you're grieving the time you wished you were living the life that you're in, and there's no way to make the time go by faster until you're right. Like, I think that there's always a mini grief period, and then there can be bigger grief periods, but it's just going like you're celebrating everything that you've done before, but you're also knowing that because of that, now you know better of how you want to live the next part of your life. So, me not I didn't know what grief was until I lost my dad, and that's a part of it. But now whenever people start to speak to it, I go like, yeah, that's grief. Sucks. I know that's grief. And I know you wanted to kill me. I think you wanted to punch me because there was a moment where you were in this period of identity shifting and not knowing what was like really what end was up, when you like didn't know, like you just thought that there was something wrong. And I was like, there's going to be a time that you're going to look back on this fondly. I swear it. And you're like, Jamie. And I'm like, I know this is hard. I'm here to listen to all of this. I'm like, but there's going to be a time where you're like, I needed that so that I could be where I'm at now. And I think we're all goddesses in progress. Like we're all going to be always evolving and changing. But I think even like just how you walk into a room now, and how you present yourself now, I can see that like you have fully encapsulated this identity of yours, and can look back on that version of yourself before and be like, yeah, I learned a lot from her, but I'm not her anymore.
100%. And I couldn't agree with you more that looking back now that I'm no longer in that space, that it was grief, and not only grief related to my job, but grief of everything that had happened in the 2 years leading up to that point. And I think once I took the leap and was on my own and didn't have all the noise of the workplace and all the busyness, and I actually had, that was the first time I spent so much time with myself, my own thoughts, my own feelings. And I think everything from the past 2 years finally just caught up to me. And it was wave after wave after wave. And it needed to happen. It needed to happen because truthfully, as you know, I tend to internalize a lot. And that wave of emotions that completely pulled me under the riptide for a while, it needed to happen. And I remember then when I saw you this past December, we were out for dinner, and you looked at me and you were like, you seem a little lighter. You seem a little happier. How are you feeling? And that really was kind of the turning point. I think that was when I started to feel better. And it's been up and down, of course, ever since, riding the waves, of course. But I think by that point, I had finally started to accept who I was becoming and accept that who I was before. While I love her and I'm grateful for her, that chapter is behind me.
Yeah. It just makes me, it makes me happy I got to be a part of this journey for you. It makes me I love it so much. So, we are coming around to, or no, April would have been your 1 year. Is that correct? Or what was it? What was the last day at the law firm was?
It was in May. I think it was like May 15th or something. So yeah, it's almost a year to the day.
Yeah. All right. So we are officially celebrating 1 full year of entrepreneurship. Let me get away from the mic a little bit. Whoop, 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 whoop. The first year is definitely the hardest, especially identity wise. I think that's exactly what, like the biggest, and I would say overall probably one of the hardest of most years, because you're trying to figure out who you are as a leader in a lot of ways, as well as like what's this business stuff we're supposed to figure out? Like there's the two sides of it, right? But what would you say, just taking a look at running your business, and that, like how long did it take for you to feel like you had a rhythm? How long did it take for you to feel like, oh, okay, like this is where I am going to generate wealth and I'm going to feel good about my life? Like how long do you feel like it took for you to be like, okay, yep, I'm an entrepreneur and I got this?
I would say probably after the new year of this year. I would say it was a good 6-ish months. Because I was dealing with a lot grief wise. I was learning, I was growing. And as you know, up until I became an entrepreneur, I wasn't super active on social media, not a tech person. I'm kind of like a grandma when it comes to that stuff.
I didn't teach her what Google Docs were, which was fun. I was like, I was like rushing to, oh, you can just find this in the Google Drive and this and there. And you're like, Jamie, where do I find that? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought everyone knew this, these shorthands. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Oh, I'll show you how to use this.
Jamie, what is a Google Doc? You're like, oh, I see. This is how it's going to go. I'm way back here. You're way up there. Nope, you got to come back here with me because I don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't remember that. It makes me laugh. But now you know what's going on. You've taught me a few things. Have you? I don't know. I don't
know if I'd go that far. I know how to use Google Drive now. It's my best friend.
All right, we're in. I've introduced you to Notion as well. You know how to use Notion. Yes.
Notion.
Okay.
I know.
We're rolling.
Yeah. I'm getting there. I'm more. I'm able to figure out things technologically better than I anticipated. I think sometimes that was just an area of life that I would just kind of discounted and said, I'm not even going to try. And when you're forced to try, you realize that you can actually do a lot more than you realized. But yeah, I think January was probably when I finally started getting into a groove. I had left a lot of that identity crisis behind. And so I was able to just be more present, more focused, more relaxed. And, I threw a cross-country move in there in November too. So that kind of disrupted my life a little bit. So, January is when I started.
Chicago to New York. We officially pulled her out of the Midwest.
Yes.
But even too, she's about to make her final New York City move very, very soon. Very, very soon, which will be good.
Yes.
But yeah, amazing. Okay. So what would you say if somebody right now is looking at, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, like what kind of, things would you like to alert them of maybe before they say yes? And also too, like, what on the flip end of things, like, why would you say that this is absolutely a great choice if this is what you want to do?
Things to be aware of before taking the leap. I think getting real with yourself and honest with yourself about the degree to which you can trust yourself and the degree to which you are comfortable being in an uncomfortable place. And that you have resilience to get through those moments personally, as well as a support system to help you get through those moments, because the identity shift is real. I've lived it. Maybe mine was more or less intense than other entrepreneurs, but it's there. So I think too, getting really clear about your why and what's driving your desire to be an entrepreneur. If it's because you don't want to, listen to the man, or like you want to wear PJs all day, I would suggest maybe doing some further reflection. Because while there is a freedom to entrepreneurship that I absolutely love, you have to hold yourself accountable because nobody else is going to do it. And so knowing if you can trust yourself to do that, if you can trust yourself to push through some of those difficult times, and that you're going to be the driving force in what happens in your business. I think too, another thing to consider is definitely that spirituality in your life. I've come a long way on that path, and it's personally been very helpful for me. I'm a proud woo-woo person now. I believe in.
I bought her first tarot card, guys. It was great.
I believe in the universe and energy and Mother Nature, and I have to say it's been such a a source of soothing, enlightenment. It's a resource for me to turn to when I'm feeling unsure, if I'm feeling upset, but it's also a resource I turn to celebrate and to have gratitude with. And I think no matter what you believe in, whether it's what I believe in or some other religion or faith or what have you, I do believe that aspect is very important because it can get really lonely, and it's nice to have a guide along the way.
I didn't prepare to say any of that. I promise I didn't prepare to say any of that. I mean, like going back to the why, and I feel like it's like people are like, oh, you got to know your why, and if you lose track of your why, burnout's there. And I think that's even a part of just thinking about the corporate journey that you had versus the entrepreneurship journey. Like the corporate why was billable hours and, getting new clients coming in and keeping managers happy. And like overall, like, yeah, why there can be a why in there. It's like, oh, this is going to be a safe way to consistently make money without having having to run it myself, that type of we can look at it a whole bunch of different ways. But there's a side of burnout, hustle. What people talk about is that sometimes it has nothing to do with how much you're working. It's how little meaning your work is, or how at the end of the day, did you leave did any of the tasks feel fulfilling to you? Or did at least 20% of the tasks feel fulfilling to you? And I think for burnout, yes, don't overwork yourself. There's no reason we have to work more than 40 hours in a week. There really isn't, unless you have something just like a week or two where like you really want to push something out, whatever it might be. But it's not just about the time you put in. It's like, how fulfilling is it? If you don't have a why, if you don't understand the purpose of why you're doing these things, or attach your whole business to what am I creating more of in the world? Like, what am I hoping this does? Yes, all of us want to make money off of our businesses. The only way we can create a movement is for us to be able to take care of ourselves financially, as well as all of everything in between. But within that, I'm going to get up every day because I know I'm going to help someone today. Like, I want to get up every day because I know if I get my admin shit together and I get this organized, that I'm probably going to be able to help a few more people, or I can hire more people, or whatever it might be. But it's about this, okay, I don't walk into entrepreneurship to make money. I make money because I'm in my purpose, because this is fulfilling. So I think there's, even though I feel like whenever I get into this chapter in Marketing Mastery and like talk through it, like a lot of people are like, oh, why? And I'm like, what is your why? And some of them don't have it off the tip of their tongue. That's like, we got to have it every day. We got to know what it is, just because there are going to be times where somebody lovingly tells you to get on Reels for the first time. Wink, wink to Kara, because the first time she's like, do I have to? Do I have to do that? Even do I still remember her giving me a really weird look when I was in Asheville, like taking like pieces of video for one of the reels I was going to create. She goes, what are you doing over there? And I'm like, it's going to be a really cool reel. And it still is one of my better performing ones. But within that, like whenever I asked her to do it, she had never been on social before. She'd never, like, in this way. And it was, I guarantee there was like, why am I doing this? Because I know I can meet a few more divorce coaches. I know, or someone looking for divorce. I know I can help people do this. And even now, what is it that you got going good for you on TikTok? If I remember correctly, just throwing it out there.
I mean,
you're the top search term for what is divorce, or what is a divorce? Like your video is the top, isn't it?
Yeah. How to tell your spouse you want a divorce.
She is the top, like the top 3 videos, if it's not the very top one of that particular question. After she came to an SEO masterclass or something, one of those things. But this is what it is that, being shy to get on a camera, that stuff's hard. The why helps. Like I'm putting myself and my nervous system through this because it's important to do this, because I want to be able to be seeked by a couple people. And I know you get the clients from TikTok for that reason. This goes back to like in the previous episodes when I'm talking about people pleasing, this idea of like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. I don't agree with it, because like if it's going to be a hell no until you play with it until you figure it out. And the why helps you get there. And I think that's what's important.
Mhm.
So one, I love the why. So within that, one quick thing here, if you had to describe what your spirituality practices are, what would you say that they are? Just because I think the knee jerk when we're talking about spirituality, people go straight to religion. And Karen, I've already kind of shared, we are from a Catholic community. We're from a majority German heritage as well. So there was a lot of like very strict Catholic and like lots of tradition. And in a lot of ways, it's very cool. Guys come to Oktoberfest in our area. It's fun. Great fun. We have bratwurst, we have a sauerkraut. It's a whole vibe. But within that, talking about some spirituality that has nothing to do with the church is something that isn't talked about. So like whenever you're talking about spirituality, we can talk about it being the woo-woo, but what would you say are kind of practices that you have that have helped you kind of find your spiritual self?
Mm-hmm. Yep. One thing that I love to do is pull cards. So whether it is a moon deck or an astrological deck or a somatic deck, anything that's going to help me basically get out of my head, take a step back, zoom out from everything that's going on in my life and just feel at ease, to feel trusting of the universe and to feel like everything's going to be okay. Also, I think another really important part, which I've been building on since last fall when things got pretty tough for me, is somatic work. Really working on connecting to my body, having a different kind of relationship to my body, learning how to love my body and be grateful for it. I've been pretty tough on my body, I would say, over the years. So there's always more learning and growing to do in that area, I think. But the breath work, the just sitting in silence with your body and seeing what's there.
Sometimes harder than you realize. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is another great example of how receiving support from other people, I've worked with a couple different somatic coaches that have helped me in that part of my life, and just trying to live, my mind's great. I have a great brain and I love my brain. Okay.
Your brain is beautiful. It's got a great cerebellum. It's beautiful.
It's gotten me really far in life. However, my body is just as important. And I think especially as an entrepreneur, learning how to access your intuition is important. And I think that's where the spirituality is really helpful, because you kind of are able to quiet out all the noise of your brain and just get in tune with your body.
I love that. It's beautiful. And I think, for anyone who is listening to us talk about tarot card decks and different things like that, and they're like, oh, okay, seriously, like what it is. And at least this is on my end when I was introduced to just tarot decks, is that it is a form of releasing control. It's like if you open up your deck at the beginning of the morning, instead of going like, okay, I know I have to do this, I got to push myself to do these tasks, or I definitely can't drop the ball here. And then you flip a card and it's telling you like, this is a time to maybe go inward. What are your needs? What is a part of this? And baked in that, there's a belief like, I was supposed to read this card today, not this like the universe intervened and like a psychic told me that I'm going to die in 10 days. None of that, movie tarot card deck stuff. It's just like you flip a random card over, and the woo or the spirituality within is like, I'm supposed to read this card today. Mm-hmm. And then you read any of the prompts that come with it and go like, okay, how do I relate to this in some way? And I think that's when it comes to the tarot deck, like don't take it too seriously, but it's also this invitation to kind of mess up the hustle a little bit in your mind and go like, oh, like, what does my body feel? What is a part of this? The other side of things is exactly what she was talking about with the body, is we were never taught to use our body when we were thinking. And our nervous system is like the most complicated, and it's everywhere within us. And like this idea that like somehow our brain is the only thing that, I know this is going to sound weird for some, but anyway, the only thing that makes decisions is a whole bunch of bukkake. Like it's a whole bunch of bull. Like even the face I get from clients who are being introduced to some of this stuff, I'm like, okay, like where do you feel that in your body? And they're just like, what? I'm like, you can feel it in your toes, you can feel it in your gut, you can feel it somewhere else. And it's just like telling you like what might be like usually when someone like feels it like heavy on their heart, it's like there's something that they're yearning for, that they haven't shown love to themselves enough to push themselves to do that. Like it can come with a lunch, like I don't feel bold enough to be able to like lead this. And it's like, all right, what can we do to nurture your heart in that way? What can we do to make sure that you are well taken care of? Because that's where spirituality can come from. And this is also, and I think we've kind of been dancing around it a little bit, but this is also why sometimes I don't fully agree with talking about like the church as a way of this, is that I feel like when we talk about spirituality, it's a lot about owning ourselves as like this source, like this source of knowing and understanding. And like even the way we connect to other sources, aka nature or other people, that we know what's going to be best for us and the people around us, and not to shy away from it. Versus, at least the way in which I've experienced the Catholic Church, is that the priests are the ones that know best, and you have to, there's a lot of shame ridden from it. And I think that there are churches who do it better. But whenever we're talking about spirituality and and thinking of the universe having our back, it's going like, wait, we're here for a reason. We know we believe that we have the tools, and the tools can look like your nervous system, your breath work, your connection with community, all of the above.
Yes, it's this idea that spirituality is really about self, at least for me, whether that is myself sitting here in front of this camera, or my higher self that is here, that has those inherent abilities to do and to know and to act. And sometimes you just got to quiet your brain down so that you can hear it.
Absolutely. Okay. What about people who are ready to jump into entrepreneurship? What would you say has been surprisingly lovely about being in this new sphere of your life?
I think what you said before, it goes back to this idea of quality over quantity. So it's not about how much I'm working or how many hours I'm putting in or the results that I'm achieving. For me, it's the quality. It is the fact that when I exit or end a Zoom meeting with a client who just had a really major breakthrough, or who called a divorce lawyer after being so scared to do it for weeks and months, and finally was able to do it. It's those feelings that I'm actually making a difference in the world and in people's lives. I felt more of that after a 1-hour call than I felt after, billing 1,700 hours in a year. And so to be able to walk away and feel like you're making a difference, and it's because I'm being me. It's because I'm doing what is truly aligned with me and what is authentic to me. To me, there's really no better feeling than that. And so that for me has been the most rewarding aspect. Of course, the perks of being able to control your schedule and to have more free time and to not really have to answer to somebody above you. Yes, those are all great perks as well. And they make my day-to-day life much less stressful. But it's definitely a much deeper reward to have those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Having like that, damn, I got to do that today. Like that feeling is always like, it transcends anything else. It transcends the fact that there was a tech snafu that went on. Like, I feel like even now that's that's been what's funny is if there's ever a tech problem, I'd be like, well, it's just not supposed to happen today. Instead of like that palpitation I'd have when I was doing a presentation on my corporate days, going, they must think I'm stupid. Like shit happens. Shit happens. I'm still going to be able to coach somebody through what their needs are. It's just gonna. There was a little bit of things that happened at the beginning. So I love this. I think it's beautiful. So I think a part of what you've shared, and thank you so much for your vulnerability of being able to talk about this journey of yours, is that a lot of this journey is a reason why you decided divorce coaching specifically is what you wanted. So how would you say being a divorce coach is different than being a divorce lawyer?
Great question.
I mean, you're both, but how would you say the interactions with your clients are?
I think I bring a different perspective than a coach who maybe is trained, in psychology, as opposed to me being trained legally. I have an ability, because I've seen divorce from both a personal angle and professional angle many, many times, to kind of mold the two into create this space for my clients where I'm able to support them emotionally, because I've been there. I get it. I lived my life the way you should. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I was very unhappy. And I've also dealt with the fear of releasing that life. And so on an emotional level, I can truly empathize and support them through those moments. On the other side, I'm able to really issue spot. I'm able to strategize with them. I am a good resource to even just explain very high level, general, how the legal world works, because really the legal language and all of the requirements is just like a foreign language. Unless you live it day in and day out, it can be very overwhelming. And so it's that balance of providing emotional support as well as strategy and goal setting, and even just helping them come up with a list of questions for their lawyer can be such a relief for them to know, okay, the next time I meet with my lawyer, who is much more expensive than I am as your coach, I've got a list of questions. I'm prepared. I kind of know what I need to get out of this meeting, as opposed to going into that meeting feeling super stressed, unsure, and have an hour go by and only really have one question answered, and then walk away from that meeting with the lawyer and have 10 more questions that you wish you would have asked. And so it's really a good balance of the emotional and the practical and the strategic. So that's how being a coach is different from being a lawyer who just solely focuses on providing legal advice and drafting legal documents and dealing with the court system as well.
Totally. So would it be too much to say that if like someone who is considering a divorce, that if they have a divorce coach, they're probably going to get more out of their billable hours with the lawyer, and it's going to be more efficient, and may not have to use their lawyer as much as they would if they didn't have a divorce coach?
I think that you could definitely say that. I mean, as a former lawyer, I remember the number of phone calls and emails and meetings I had with clients where it was clear they were very emotional about certain issues. And oftentimes those emotions would derail a settlement or make them become very entrenched in their positions and unable to really see a bigger picture of what was happening. And so by processing those emotions with me as a coach, and also just getting very clear and organized about what you want, what are some of the obstacles, and how do you want to move forward in light of all of that, just helps them stay more clear, more focused, more reasonable, and more creative on the legal side, which is only going to help you get through your case quicker, hopefully cheaper, and at the very least, feeling more intact as a person, as opposed to just really getting pulled through the ringer of the process.
Totally. I feel like the of the small stories that I've heard from you is it's just being able to know that like sometimes your lawyers probably shouldn't be the person you go to when you're triggered by your ex. Like there needs to be some kind of emotional grounding, because a lawyer's not equipped to help you with that, at least they're in their formal training. But like even though like we can have a general understanding, but I think that's a big piece of this. So putting you to the test of you talking about your why, like what is your ultimate goal of being a divorce coach? Like what would you like to see in the people that you help?
My mission is really to make divorce an empowering experience for my clients. So many people, and this is in large part due to culture and societal beliefs and all of that, so many people view divorce as a failure or as something negative. And while it is challenging, it's also an amazing opportunity to really do some self-exploration, to get really clear on who you are, what you want, and how you want to move forward in a different way. It's really like a nice way to press the reset button on your life. It's a blank slate, it's a new chapter. And so to be able to partner with clients to help them look at it from a different angle and realize that this is okay. This is part of life. This isn't saying anything negative about me. In fact, I'm very brave and empowered to even be making this decision with my life, right? And so to really lean into that and to partner with them to show them that there is more than one way to live your life. I think I'm a perfect example of that. I've had like 3 metamorphoses in the last 3 years. And it's okay to do things a different way. And just because your life is changing doesn't mean that it's negative. To the contrary, it's actually a really amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. I feel like the way in which, at least that Kara has gone through this process and I've been able to be a part of it with her in different ways, is that it had a lot to do with like coming back to self, and tooting my own horn in some way. Like that's what this podcast is about, is being able to break down what we've been told that we should do, how we should live our lives, and be able to go like, what would it look like if I went all in on me, on like knowing that comes with hardship, that comes with conflict, because you've been a certain way for a long time, but it also comes through feeling transcendent and absolutely knowing that anything's possible, and that what, like in general, your relationships are a reflection of how you treat yourself. And I know that many of the people that you've been friends with before your divorce, during entrepreneurship, like they've stuck around, but there's also new people that are like, oh wait, that you can talk about new things with. I think that was one of the biggest things for my own entrepreneurship journey, was that I remember when someone was like, you should be an entrepreneur, I had no one around me to show me those examples. Mm-hmm. But then once you are in it and you have committed to it, then you have these new people coming into your life. So for anyone who's feeling stuck, whether it's work, like in your relationship and or whatever it might be, like it's not always about like what other people should be doing for you. It's like, what should I be doing for myself? And I know this because I know Kara's offers, that there is a part of you that, or a part of what it is that whenever you coach somebody, they may stay in their marriage, they're just speaking up more. They're asking for what they want, because some may have partners that are ready for this metamorphosis to happen. They've been wanting it for a while for them, as well as the other side of it, where it doesn't serve anyone to stay in a relationship, in a job, whatever it might be, that is just deteriorating like people's love of life. Like we're like, not to be a whole YOLO experience, but yeah, we're here for as long as we want to be, as long as we'd like to be. But the idea is like, we want it to be fulfilling. And I think there this shame around divorce is a really good metaphor for many things, is that we've always had choice. But there's nothing wrong with making a choice for yourself. It will piss people off, mm-hmm. and you may need help with support of others to get through how others may make you feel. But at the end of the day, the people who are most important to you will get on board or they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're not your people. So with everything that Kara is sharing is that her title is, yes, divorce coach, but it's literally like one of her packages called the Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
Rising.
Yeah,
Is that
the
correct?
Phoenix. Mm-hmm.
And she even got herself that tattoo because she loved it. And like she like whatever. And it's literally about like finding yourself and hoping that your relationships will match it or not, and go from there.
100%. 100%. I am no stranger to this idea of lovingly burning everything to the ground and rising up from the ashes and starting again. You can start again as many times in life as you want to, as long as it feels aligned with you and brings you fulfillment and joy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Kara, one more question. Well, maybe I have another one after that, but one more but very important question is, everyone who comes on the podcast, I like to ask, what does limitless mean to you?
Yes, I've been thinking about this. I think for me, limitless means faith. It means faith in yourself, first and foremost, faith in the universe or whatever it is that you believe in, and faith in your community and the people you surround yourself with. Because I think you can't really be limitless if you are white knuckling everything. It's just going to hold you down. And so leaning into that faith and that trust in yourself and the people around you and the world around you is going to allow you to achieve and go places that you never probably thought you would ever go.
Ugh. I have no follow-up because that's a beautiful answer. It's a beautiful answer. My one last question within this is, what SpongeBob episode are you going to watch next? Because we got so deep and so serious. We acted like we were going to talk about SpongeBob on here. Now I want to hear what SpongeBob episode are you going to watch next?
Okay, so I don't know the specific episode. However, I was very tempted when we got on here with my mic to say testing, 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 testing. I won't go further. I'm sure you guys all know the episode I'm referring to. If you're a fan, if you know, you know.
Well, I guarantee anyone who's listening is like, no, we don't know.
Well, then they're not true fans.
It's true. It's true. That's Patrick. That's what Patrick would be saying. So it's perfect. Kara, how can we stay in touch with you? How can someone look to find you on the internet and in general be able to use or be a part of your services at some point?
So I'm on the gram, of course. My handle is at Kara Francis Coaching. And you can also check out my website, karafranciscoaching.com. That has all my social links too.
Beautiful. Beautiful. If there's any weird questions you want to know about Kara, just DM me. I know I've known her since I was 5, so feel free, like, just in case you want to know. But either way,
why I don't like hot tubs.
You don't like hot tubs. Wait,
I'm not a water sign. Let's be clear. I'm a double fire. Okay. I'm 2 fire signs, no water. So I think it's making sense.
I think it's because you need water. Maybe. I don't know.
Sometimes water to quench the fire if I get a little too fiery, I suppose.
Kara, thank you so much for sharing your story today. It was over here, I feel like I was just feeling it all in the heart, and knowing that I got to see you on this journey, and knowing that this hard but amazing first year of your entrepreneurship is going to be the most beautiful foundation for everything you're about to achieve. And I'm such a blessing that I got to be here.
Oh, well, you're a big part of it, and I love you, and thanks for having me.
I love you. Bye, guys.